I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We talking about practice, man. We, talk, we talking about practice. We talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We talking about practice, man. When you come in the arena and you see me play, don't you? You see me give everything I got, right? But we talking about practice right now. We talking about practice. Man, look, I hear you. It's funny to me too. I mean, it's strange. It's strange to me too. But we talking about practice, man. We're not even talking about the game, the actual game, when it matters. We talking about practice.
Good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the No Respek podcast. It is episode 2 called We Talk About Practice, and join alongside me is two of my good friends, but also co-hosts of this show is Mr. Justin and Alex. How are you guys today?
I'm good, ready to go, ready for this season to start finally, and ready to talk about some practice.
Yeah, of course. Alex?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here for episode 2. Once again, it's an honor to be here with you guys. I'm hoping that I've solidified a place in the lineup and ready to get going.
Hey, listen, the Montreal Canadiens motto is probably the same when it comes to everything needs to be earned. I think you've earned at least a spot for the next couple of episodes. All jokes aside, we absolutely need you for the rest of the year, so we hope that you stay with us. So.
Thank you.
So, guys, for those of you who maybe missed last episode, just want to kind of rehash a little bit of the novelties of our podcast before we get into the Habs training camp, the season beginnings, Pierre-Luc Dubois, all of that good shit, Barzal getting a contract, all of these things. But yes, so for those of you who missed last episode where we talked a little bit of a recap of off-season, what we also wanted to mention is the fact that the No Respek podcast is now officially on Spotify. Apologies for those of you who didn't get to see the episode right at the same time as when we posted on YouTube and iTunes. For whatever reason, there was a problem, but we figured it out, and it should be good for the remainder of our episodes and uploading. So so guys, like the main thing is that right now we've come up with a formula that we can do this remotely with Alex, who's in Ontario, and Justin and myself still in Montreal. And we do this remotely. We're no longer doing it on Twitch for those of you who used to watch us on Twitch, but we might bring that back depending on how the season goes. So we're now on YouTube. If you guys want to give us a like and subscribe there, a follow on Spotify, all of that good stuff. And we also now have our Twitter personas, as you said last time, Justin, which is always to kind of get our individual takes, and of course the at No Respek podcast Twitter page. So just wanted to go over all of those details before we get in today's episode, guys. Are you guys excited? Season's right around the corner.
Oh yeah, baby.
Absolutely, ready to go.
Yeah, let's get into it, guys. So to start off today, we're going to talk a little bit, of course, about the Habs training camp and the scrimmages that went on before opening night against the big bad Maple Leafs. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about is, just globally, there's been a lot of interviews. There's been a lot of good stuff that's been talked about. We've gotten to see a little bit of footage of the new acquisitions, whether it be, Jake Allen talking about Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Tyler Toffoli talking about the team, as well as Josh Anderson talking about the team, Alexander Romanov in skates and on a line with Kulak, I believe, right now. So that's a pairing and all of that good stuff. I don't know if you guys had the chance to really kind of take a look or listen to some of that stuff, but I wanted to get your thoughts overall and what you guys have heard about some of the stuff that's been going on in training camp for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, for me, it's all been kind of positive attitudes and good stuff all around. I mean, it's cool to hear kind of Jake Allen's take on a couple of the new guys and our rookies, our young players' shots and stuff. We kind of got another quote from Jesperi Kotkaniemi saying that he might have thought his shot was good because he hit him in the mask in practice. So that was kind of funny, but it's all positive vibes for the season, which is good to hear. Good to have a bit of locker room chemistry going before the season starts.
Yeah, I think with the hype that they're building now, I want to say that they better bring it for that game against the Maple Leafs, because we've only been hearing positive stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a shock to some people. Let's say if Anderson disappoints after all this hype we're getting about how he's so fast and his shot is unbelievable. I think they better give a good performance in that opening game.
Yeah, I mean that's we talked a little bit about that last podcast, is that, you know, now the Montreal Canadiens are no longer in the like, okay, it's a loosey-goosey season. If we don't make it to the playoffs, at least we get a good draft pick. It's like, no, that shit's over now. It's going to be puck drop, and there's 56 games. We also talked about the fact that there's no real room for the same type of off performances that we have, which were like 8-game losing streaks twice last season. So none of that shit is remotely close to acceptable this season, without fans kind of backlashing. So that's totally normal. But I do think that when I look at the way that the people are talking, and I think there's an adjustment period. I don't know if you guys get that kind of sense that, you know, Edmondson talked a little bit about how, you know, he used to play man-to-man in the Carolina system, so he's coming back to zone, but there's differences in the systems. There's Romanov that's coming into, you know, into the obviously as a rookie. This is completely new to him. He had a little bit of time with the Montreal Canadiens during the bubble time, but you know, there's a lot of new faces, and I think a great way to kind of start this this podcast, because, you know, as you said, Wednesday night is puck drop. We've got all of these new faces, and I wanted to question on do you guys think, we touched on a little bit on it last podcast, but do you guys have any doubt or any reason to worry that this group might not mesh in time to perform for this season?
Yeah, I think the words you use there, in time, like I think that's the key. I think give it a couple of seasons, guaranteed they'd mesh, and I think it's a very good team. But I think the fact that this is a shortened season, it is scary bringing in that many new names and trusting the rookies so much that there really isn't time to build that chemistry, because if you start off the season on a 10-game losing streak, that's pretty much it. You don't have the time to catch up this year. So yeah, I'm not worried about the chemistry in the long term, but for a season like this, it is worrying.
10 game losing streak. Fuck.
Yeah.
After the year that everybody has had with 2020 and COVID and shit, like, to have the Montreal Canadiens come back after giving us hope in the bubble, and to have that happen would be fucking disastrous.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be the most typical thing, no? I feel like I'm almost expecting it at this point.
Yeah, fuck, dude. That's actually true, but, you know, one can only dream. Justin, what about you?
For me, my more optimistic side is telling me that while we did get a lot of different new pieces, our kind of core and pillars of our team are still there, and we didn't trade out like a Shea Weber, or we traded out like a Brendan Gallagher, someone that's like core to our forward group. So those kind of core pieces will kind of set the tone, I think, for the new players, and kind of take a bit of the pressure off from them in not having like the crazy first game performance or first 10-game performance that we'd expect from them. So I think at least also from the defensive position, like we do have new defensemen, like Edmondson, like Romanov, but we do have like we had such a dominant, at least top 3 defense core. So I think we're not in so much trouble there in kind of developing this new not developing a new system, but bringing these players into a new system, because we have already kind of an established group that knows the system so well.
I think that's a really, really good point. Like I hadn't really thought of that, is that, you know, when you take a look at the acquisitions that we've had, of course, like, you know, our top line though is still there. Like you said, you've got like Gallagher and Danault and Tuna Tatar that are all there. And those were really the driving factors. Nick Suzuki, Jonathan Drouin, yes, you don't have Max Domi a part of that group, and you maybe had like I can't remember who was playing with Nick Suzuki and Jonathan Drouin at the time, but I think it was maybe Armia. I can't remember.
I think it was,
to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so the thing is that you still have the pieces, because you're not kind of reshuffling it. It's truly additions that we got. like apart from Max Domi,
Yeah.
there is a way to come back to what's familiar to the players. And that's a great point, though. Like, I hadn't really thought of it until you said it. So you do have that flexibility that, if it doesn't work out and, for whatever reason, I think right now the reality is that a guy like Victor Mete is looking from the outside looking in, coming into this lineup. So I could be wrong on that, but Romanov and Kulak are the bottom pairing defense. I think I got the confirmation from Twitter. Obviously, you take everything from Twitter with a grain of salt, but it does mean that, let's say for whatever reason Romanov and Kulak don't go well, you can come back to what you had last season because they're still part of your roster inventory, which is cool. So
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can continue if you want.
No, please. And again, guys, we apologize. There's sometimes a little bit of latency when it comes to doing this podcast like this, so we have to get used to it a bit. But go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, since we have kind of a wealth of depth, it's not gonna kind of, like, since we have players like Corey Perry, Martin Frolik, and on defense we have Victor Mete, Juleson potentially to come in and are ready to go to fill roles where players might underperform. I think in that regard we're kind of set up so that if we do have underperformers, we have players that'll come in and try to fill the role. I mean, to varying degrees. Like, you're not going to replace Josh Anderson with Corey Perry necessarily, but it's still options that are there.
For sure. But it's the familiarity that I think it might be a tool that will be helpful in case the chemistry, like we said, that might be problematic in this situation where you're starting off the season with less of a leash, less of a training camp, no preseason games, but making the transition of the preseason games, what I wanted to bring up, because this was something that Claude Julien mentioned and some of the players did as well, as the intensity of the practices that the Montreal Canadiens held, and the fact that there was, the red team and the white team. From what I understood, the red team was more of like the roster that you would expect on opening night, with some of the preset lines that we'll get into right after this. And then after that, everybody that was, like we said, kind of some of the players that are from the outside looking in. And what that did apparently for Claude Julien was a practice that was much more intense than a preseason game, because he was touching on the fact that, when you have these preseason games, you have maybe a couple of like the veterans that are just giving it enough to, show up to be nice, in a way that's, it's not intense, but here your guys are kind of all internal, fighting for a spot, and that competition becomes more concrete, if that makes sense. And I don't know if you guys think that that's going to have any impact on helping us get ready for this season, as opposed to preseason games that are a little bit less, maybe less intense.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to have an impact, like a more positive impact than other teams would have, because it seems like most teams are doing the same. Obviously, since they can't travel and stuff, they have to be having these intra-squad games. But I think it is a big boost just for every team in general. Like you were saying, they split the teams up red and white, and it seemed like the red team was probably the final roster or close to. So when you have the guys they're playing against who actually want to win this scrimmage game because they're fighting for their spot, right? The fourth line of that red team as opposed to the first line of the white team is probably interchangeable. A guy like Paul Byron, who now is on the fringe of the lineup because of these additions, he's going to be playing extra hard. And then when he goes into corner hard against the D-man who's also fighting for his spot, I think it does prepare you better for the season. I think it's good overall, but yeah. I don't think it gives Montreal an advantage over other teams because they're probably all doing the same.
Yeah, I might be looking into it a little bit more, but what I was going to ask, and Justin, maybe you have an answer to this, is that maybe the fact that the Habs are so deep that it does prepare your squad a bit more, because the quality of the players as you go down the lineup, like listen, this is where, I could be saying complete and utter shit, but, the fact that you often are. Yeah, well, you know what? Fuck you, Justin. A point for me is that, we talk about the Montreal Canadiens' depth, right? So, like, let's say compared to the Maple Leafs, which we'll get there later on when we talk about the two matchups for opening night. But, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, they're not even in the same kind of conversation as maybe some of the people that are outside of the actual roster spot. You can argue that maybe some of the fourth liners could give them a run for their money, but I don't know to what extent that, the depth of that white team opposed to the red team helps your team prepare maybe a bit more. It gives a slight advantage. I don't know, might be completely irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the same opinion as Alex. Like, I think almost every team is doing something similar where they're pitting half of their lineup against the other, or half of their like training cap roster against the other. But yeah, I think where we do have some sort of advantage is in the having our spots. Like, the spots on the lineup have to be earned by our players. So, like, there's a lot of competition going on in our squad, and that makes it so players are trying harder, trying new things, and trying to, like, really make a name for themselves on the team. Because even having, like, a Josh Anderson come in, like, he's kind of a big shot, making $7 million a year, big guy.
No, it's not $7 million. It's 7-year contract at 5.5.
Sorry, you're right.
If I'm
you're
not
right.
mistaken.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because
then they would have been even more pissed.
Yeah, jump.
They would have been even more pissed about that contract.
Anyway, so he's coming in. He's a big guy. But
who knows? Big guy, yeah.
Who knows if he's gonna be a top 3 forward? If he's gonna be top 9, like, he still has to find a name for himself and play as good as he can to get a spot in the lineup.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the same for all these players like Martin Frolik and Corey Perry and these guys that are more depth players. They're gonna want to make an impact in these practice games and in these first games of the season.
For sure. And like you said, like, everybody has to earn their spot for the roster. And I guess we can move into a little bit of maybe like the line combinations that we've kind of seen throughout the camp. And obviously, Danault, Tatar, Gallagher, that's a set line for this season. I would be very surprised if Claude Julien, puts that line in the blender because, the rest of the team, that's where there might be a little bit more kind of uncertainty with the chemistry. One of the lines and one thing that we saw during the playoffs there's a slight adjustment, like we said, is Nick Suzuki, Jonathan Drouin, and as opposed to Armia on that side, complementing that line, you put in the big fat Josh Anderson. I call him fat because he's just a monster of a fucking player. He's honestly, out of all of the players, like, I could be dead wrong on this, but I'm super excited to see what this guy's going to do. I saw, like, some footage of him skating, and for a guy that's like 6'3", the quads, the shoulder width, I'm talking traps, like, it's actually fucking impressive.
The Nathan Beaulieu face.
Yeah, it's Nathan Beaulieu times 2 basically in width and everything. So times
2 in skill too, and then overall just a hockey player.
Hey, let's not bash Nathan Beaulieu. He's a good friend of mine. I had a conversation with him. So no. So what I wanted to say though is that that line for me and what I wanted to know is, do you guys see this kind of, in any case, do you have any worries about this line not necessarily fitting well for any reason?
I mean,
no, I'm not worried about the line. I'm not really worried about any line. I like how it seems we're building every line to be another version of that Danault, Gallagher, Tatar line. So it seems like the second line, you have Suzuki, who's very similar to Danault in how he plays, very responsible. Probably has more offensive upside now, but similar mold. A guy like Drouin, who you could probably compare to Tatar, the more offensive part of the line. And then you had a guy like Anderson, who can hopefully fill that Gallagher role. Obviously, he's double Gallagher's size, but they play hopefully a similar style. And then even the third line, Kotkaniemi, who you could compare to Suzuki and Danault, two-way, responsible, good defensive game. And you put a guy like Toffoli, who could be the offensive upside, and Armia, who can play that power forward role. I think I really like how the lines are built, and I'm not worried about their performance because of how those roles complement each other. You're not putting all your offensive upside on one line. It's split very evenly. That I think even on a night where one line's not performing, I think another one can step up.
I was just gonna say that, you know, and Justin, I'll let you speak right after this. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say that in terms of like EASHL, or sorry, not just EASHL, just when you like the NHL game that we all play and we talk about fucking chemistry and like how you get 100 synergy is always you get the fucking playmaker, the sniper, and then after that the grinder. And when you look at the yeah, or the power forward, it's the whole point is that when you say it that way, it's like there's that literal tangible kind of formula where you have the complementing pieces. So I totally agree, Justin.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying. I think the players themselves complement each other on paper for sure. It's still to be seen how it comes out in a real game. But I'm optimistic for this, and I also like that we have kind of 4 lines or even arguably 5 lines that can come out and play hockey. Like we don't have any plugs in the lineup where we're not sure if they can play. Like even our 4th line, like that has Byron, who's, I mean, the only question mark maybe is Jake Evans, who has played very well. Just not really. I mean, hasn't really been offensive, but he's played like pretty decently. But Byron and Lehkonen are 2 of the players that are the most reliable, I'd say, on the team in terms of like overall just hockey, like overall play. So I'm just confident in that, and having these kinds of 4 lines that can come at you and play hockey.
If I can jump in too, like you're saying, it's nice to see names like Byron and Lehkonen on the 4th line, and hopefully this year we don't have that rotation of Wheel, King, Belzil, stuff like that. Like you have a name like Byron and Lehkonen on the 4th line, that clearly means you have a solid team.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're not stuck with trade deadline acquisitions. I don't know if there's even a trade deadline this year, but
it's in like a week.
It's just nice to see names like that on the 4th line. It's a good sign.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's and I mean, barring any injuries or COVID related absences, I think this is great. And if we don't run into too many injury troubles, and we can stay with our lineup, maybe 1 or 2 players tops that go out, I think we're going to be set and solid for like our kind of lines of forwards.
Yeah, well, 2 things on that. Well, because obviously we have this new context of like very condensed schedule, right? And so we're going to be seeing probably still that rotation, but the rotation is not necessarily just Jordan Wheel now. It's guys like you said, Lehkonen and Byron. Then after that, your other kind of 2 other pieces that are the complementary 4th line guys or whatever, the plugs, are established NHL guys as well, in Michael Frolik, in Corey Perry. And these guys might, one thing that Marc Bergevin, we didn't necessarily talk about this just yet, we might get into it a little bit later, but the Marc Bergevin presser and what he said about Corey Perry is that, I think, I'm paraphrasing here, but you see what he did in Dallas during the playoffs. It's maybe not a guy that's going to be as impactful during the regular season, but he's not somebody that's going to help you get there. But when you are there, will be impactful. So you have that as in your back pocket as the Montreal Canadiens depth, which we've all talked about in terms of being their strength heading into this season. But my last question on the line rotations, line combinations. Would it be fair to say that ideally, because we talked about how having like maybe Lehkonen and Byron on your 4th line is a great thing to see. Is it fair to say, if I say this statement, if Danault, Tatar, and Brendan Gallagher are not your first line this year, that we have a real chance?
What do you mean by that?
By that, I mean, like, they are not our top line. They are our 3rd line. You know how, like, Danault during the playoffs saw his role kind of diminish?
Yeah. So you're saying that one of, like, Suzuki's or Kotkaniemi's lines
I was trying to be a little bit more poetic, but yeah.
I mean, exactly it didn't totally hit the mark, but yeah, I see what you mean. And I think that's something that could happen, like we saw in the playoffs and the play-ins or whatever. Mm-hmm. That Danault, Gallagher, and Tatar didn't really get off to the start they wanted to, and they weren't really producing as much as they wanted to, and that they did in the regular season. I could see them having less ice time, but still being there for kind of like the big role, big shutdown moments, and big kind of, they'll always be there as like a reliable line. But I could, like you said, see that Suzuki's line could end up getting more minutes and become the first line. But it remains to be seen. But I'm confident in Suzuki's line. I think they're going to kill it this year.
Alex?
Yeah, if that's the case, that our current first line becomes the second or third line, I think that's a very, very good sign towards the success of this team. Because guys like Gallagher, Tatar, Danault, even if they're struggling, they're not going to have a 20-point season. Like, even if they're not playing well, there's still going to be 40, 50-point guys. I don't know how that translates in a shortened season, but I don't see them being a third line that's just like written off as a decent third line in the league. So yeah, I think if they end up
on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't have to go there, but okay.
Well, I mean,
but
we were nice last episode, but yeah,
that's true.
We'll get into it later.
So yeah, I think if your poem comes true, I think we're in a very good position. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think when we look at that scenario, the scenario that one of those lines kind of eclipses the Danault line. Obviously, the one that stands out to me is probably the Suzuki line. But you know, who knows? Like, it could be that the third line will remain. You know, the Kotkaniemi, Toffoli, Armia. But you know, if for whatever reason, you know, the Nick Suzuki line is completely, let's say, I'm going to take the example of the Toronto Maple Leafs because this is the one that is the most imminent for the Montreal Canadiens in terms of matchups. But if you have a line, the two first lines of the Montreal Canadiens are like, you know, whatever it may be, like that third line that you're going to put out there against the third line of the Toronto Maple Leafs, if it can match the first two lines in terms of offense or at least playing each other out, I mean, you're in really good position as the Montreal Canadiens. Like that's like your fourth line is also fucking solid. So, you know, you have a literally 50% of your offense that could potentially dominate the game. And obviously the part that's the question mark for the Montreal Canadiens is if the first two lines can match up to the other team's first two lines. And that's the biggest question mark, I think. And one thing that we'll see play out. So, but then after that, we haven't talked about our back end. So let's get into our back end. And one thing that was interesting was there's been a little bit of a weight gain in our defense. For certain players that you wouldn't kind of expect, like Romanov, he gained like 15 pounds. He's looking lean as hell. I don't know if you guys saw his video where he was talking about his introduction, wearing his jersey for the Montreal Canadiens for the first time. He's super excited, so that's great. But Big Ben got bigger. Ben Sherratt went from, I don't know exactly what the weight. Do you have the number?
So
Justin?
He went from, his height didn't change, so that's the same.
I mean, he's like 27.
He's not growing anymore, at least in the vertical sense. But he went from 225 last season to a big 234. So that's 9 extra pounds on Big Ben Sherratt. Yeah. Do you want me to go through the other ones, or?
Yeah.
I mean,
why don't you do
there's
that?
weight gain all over the place. So I don't know if COVID took a hit on them on the diet portion
too
of
many
their
wings. I know I've been down that road quite a bit since COVID hit. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think we can cut them some slack. I think we've all gained probably 10 plus pounds, right?
Yeah,
I think,
for sure.
Oh
Easy
yeah,
money.
10 plus. That's putting it lightly. So yeah, let me just go through the defensemen that I have right here, and so yeah, Ben Sherratt from 225 to 234. Romanov he was 5'11" last year, 185. Now he's 6 foot 208.
Fuck. What?
So that's
beast.
that's 23 pounds.
That's a hell of a summer.
Yeah. So hopefully he still has his speed and his game. We haven't really seen much of his game so far, but
seen
moving
a couple
on,
of clips though, looking good.
Yeah. So Jeff Petrie, 6'3", 201 last season. Now he also didn't gain any height, but he gained 7 pounds. He's now 208.
Fuck.
So that's a lot. Joel Edmondson, he was 215. He went up to 227. And Shea Weber is the only one that was actually watching his weight this summer or this offseason. He went from 230 to 229, so he shaved a pound off.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, I think he just shaved part of his beard, and that's most of it. I think
Either that or they took the no, forget it. I was going to talk about his penis again. Let's go.
Jesus Christ, Mackie, you don't give me more editing work.
I'm sorry. All right. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if this is something that's, it might be because, when you come off an off season, I think it's kind of normal to have maybe a couple of extra pounds that you took from training, and weight training is obviously something that's a big part of the off season. So guys might be putting on a little bit of extra weight and then they shed it as the season progresses. I don't know if it's going to be a problem, because we want to make sure that our defense is mean, but we also don't want to we want to make sure that they can fucking move. Like, they're not just rolling around. So, I don't think that it's actually going to be the case where, they're going to be too slow, but I don't know what you guys think, if this is something to be worried about or this is just part of the process.
I think it's normal. I think it's probably the same for every team. I think all the guys show up 5, 10, like, I know we're talking, 23 pounds? Or no, I guess that's normal for Romanov. He's still young. He's still growing. But the other guys, I'm sure every player shows up maybe 5, 10 pounds overweight, and give them 2-3 games of water weight to sweat off. And I think 100%. They'll be back to their normal weight.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Like you said, like, I don't think, our defense hasn't really, like, our big players haven't really been so much about speed. But like you said, it is, if they lose a lot of speed, it could be bad. But I think it could be a plus, even. Like, if you're talking about just, like, more power in the defense and they haven't lost too much speed, like, especially for Romanov, who's growing, and just having him gain some weight is like, obviously a great thing. And Ben Sherratt, like, he uses his body like a machine, and he just throws his body around. So I think that could be good. Hopefully there's no speed loss there, and I think Jeff Petrie, there's no concern at all, because he's just a magnificent skater, and he can, I think if you weigh 300 pounds, he can still skate circles around anyone.
But I mean, like, let's hope that it doesn't have to do with, like, like bad weight gain. I don't think it's going to be the case. I agree with both what you guys said, but if this is our blue line, and they're mobile, because there's the chance that they're not, but let's look at it from the optimistic side. But fuck, like, if you're Alex Kerfoot on the Toronto Maple Leafs heading into these guys, like, next game, you got to be a little bit scared. Like, that's the one thing that I kind of like, the fact that we've got some tick boys, like triple C tick, like, on the back end. And I think that when we talk about, how this group is going to have, like, an intimidating kind of, makeup, that back end is fucking scary right now. And add in a couple of cheeseburgers and we're good to go. Fuck.
And think about the fact that, like you're saying, Kerfoot going into the corner against these guys, then at the end of the game goes through his head that he has to do it 9 more times this year.
Yeah. And maybe
so I don't think people are going to be looking forward to visiting the Bell Center this year.
And maybe the next night even, like,
exactly.
back-to-backs or just like home and home series. I don't think the Habs are going to be an easy team to play against. And I think they're similar to the Winnipeg Jets a few years ago, where they were just like giants, and they just had like so many big, heavy players that it was just impossible to play against, and they just dominated like in the playoffs. And that's something too. Like, I think it's going to be good having more weight and just more big players is in the playoffs, where hitting and just like taking the energy out of your opponent is just so important.
I mean, 100%, and we saw that being effective in the addition of, like, the game. A part of the game that Jesperi Kotkaniemi added to his, like, tool set was that physicality. And when you look at some of the cup winners that have been in the past, obviously the LA Kings is a long time ago when we think about it, even though it doesn't seem that way. But you look at, even Chicago, you look at more recently the St. Louis Blues, what they were able to accomplish is that they had big guys, Edmondson, of course, being a part of that group, but their fourth line, their top line, they were all heavy guys that were finishing their checks. Sami Blais is one of those guys that, under the radar a little bit in terms of maybe, regular season performance. There was Sundqvist as well. I think that's how you pronounce it. But their back end was big, So you do see some similarities, and hopefully that can translate to some success, some concrete success for the Montreal Canadiens. But let's talk a little bit about the couple of guys on the back end that might be in the Victor Mete situation, like we were saying, is that it's not sure what that lineup is going to be at the bottom pairing right now. You've got, I think right now, the indications show from Twitter, from the training camp, that Romanov and Kulak is going to be that set. I don't know what you guys think about this, if this is going to be the solution long term for this season, and if you have another pairing in mind.
For me, I mean, this is kind of going on a different direction from your question, but I think the concern of mine for players like Victor Mete, Noah Juleson, Fleury, Cale Fleury, is that they don't necessarily have the option to play in Laval and to come back quickly. So young players like that who kind of need the time of day to get on the ice and play games, to get their feet, their game going, it's going to be a bit harder for them to come back and have time on the taxi squad for maybe like a 5-game period or something, and then come back into the lineup. So that is a bit of a concern of mine in bringing players in and out of the lineup, especially for younger players. But I think in terms of the players we have, they have enough experience that they can come in and fill those roles if our bottom pairing doesn't necessarily perform the way we want it to. But I also think the bottom pairing is kind of there just to be like a safeguard, and our top two pairings are going to take up like 40%. Like 40 minutes of the, maybe even more, like 45 minutes of the game versus like the 15 minutes that the bottom pairing plays.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with that bottom pairing, but I don't see why currently it seems like they're slotting Edmondson on the second pairing with Petrie. To me, I'd go with a guy like Romanov or Kulak with Petrie to keep that offensive upside. I think Petrie's solid enough defensively to cover. And I don't know, I wasn't a big fan of the Edmondson acquisition. And I think if you're going to acquire a guy like that, he should be played on the third pairing and kind of shelter one of those young guys, rather than, I think the impact he's going to have on a pairing with Petrie is to slow Petrie down and kind of limit Petrie's offensive upside, if that makes sense. That's just the way I see it. So I don't mind a third pairing of Romanov Kulak, but I'd rather see one of those guys on the second pairing with Petrie.
See, that's where I would disagree with you a little bit, because for me, if I take a look at last season and Marco Scandella being a part of our group for a brief time before we had Marc Bergevin, flip him for I think it was a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick, I can't remember. But when I look at what that did for Jeff Petrie, is I feel that having that kind of stay at home guy for Jeff Petrie allows him to develop or use his offensive game more than if he has to shelter a Victor Mete, a Romanov, whatever it is that you have that guy that's going to be like, Petrie, go up, skate like the beautiful man that you can, and then after that, rip a fucking dinger in the overtime against Pittsburgh as you will. And, Romanov and Kulak, I think that if there is a question mark, that's where it is. That bottom pairing, if we're worried about maybe the progression of Romanov, but again, the high praise that we've gotten from everyone, at least listening to the interviews, is that Claude Julien is saying that, he's the type of player that he might make mistakes, but he has the personality that will allow him to learn quickly, and he's going to want to learn quickly from his mistakes. So I think to start the season, I would definitely go with what is going on right now with Edmondson and see if Kulak and especially if Kulak plays the way that he did in the bubble, because that was that was prime time Brett Kulak. It's the consistency factor that has always been a question with him, but we've seen that kind of be the case with Brett Kulak from time to time, and if he can keep that consistent, then that bottom pairing might be a great thing. Coming back on maybe some of the rookies that are looking from the outside, I think that, like you said, Justin, the fact that we don't have the flexibility of bringing them up from Laval easily, give them time. I know that might suck for Victor Mete. It might suck for Noah Juleson and Cale Fleury that got a taste and that did relatively well. I do think, though, right now that the reality is that Romanov and Kulak present probably the better option between everyone that we have. I don't know if you would do any swap between Kulak and Mete or vice versa.
Yeah,
well, vice versa. That doesn't make any sense.
I wouldn't. No, I think it makes sense what you're saying. And I think it's better for the development to play the first pairing in the AHL rather than a sheltered third line role in the NHL. I think Mete, we're probably disappointed by how his development's gone as opposed to his rookie year where he was showing more of an offensive upside. So I think if you can play him on that first AHL pairing, let him build his confidence a bit more, basically exactly what happened with Kotkaniemi.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mete is not as highly touted of a prospect as Kotkaniemi, but I think you give him those opportunities in the AHL, and maybe we see that offensive side build and develop.
Well, I think at this point too, like Victor Mete, if we're talking about him, he doesn't necessarily fit the mold of what our defensive core looks like now. Like we're not so much looking at like small, fast defensemen. We're kind of looking at big guys. Like it's kind of like a power defenseman that we seem to have more of. Like we have guys that can bring offense, but also have big bodies and can throw hits and can be decent enough defensively. So I don't know if it's a thing of a change of scenery for Victor Mete with like fitting somewhere else better. I love Victor Mete. I think he brought a lot to our team in the past. But maybe like I kind of want to see a room for Noah Juleson and Cale Fleury, because I kind of feel like they fit our defensive core better than Victor Mete would.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that the mold and the identity of the Montreal Canadiens has definitely shifted. The good thing about Victor Mete and what makes him, I think stand out of everybody else is his speed, his mobility. And if there's ever a time and a place where we see that there's a problem, you still have Victor Mete in your inventory of roster to be able to kind of make that switch and see what it does to the dynamic. But it would be different because right now you look at the way that we're kind of lined up, but Sherratt, Shea Weber, like you guys said, Edmondson and Petrie, all big kind of power defensemen, like you said. I like that term because it's kind of like a power forward, but on defense. It's gonna be. I don't know. I don't know if we'll see Victor Mete, and I really liked him. He's an Italian boy. He's got that kind of St. Leo kind of mentality when he talks. I fucking love it. He says mint all the time, and I would love to have an espresso with him. And that's like that. I've loved what he's been able to do and surprise in the camp, but it could be that with the reality and the identity of this team, that a change of scenery is possible. But let's move on from our defense and maybe talk a little bit, just kind of to end off on the Montreal Canadiens camp, a little bit about the standouts and what you guys think from the brief kind of footage that we saw. We actually have the scrimmage that is going to be televised on TSN and RDS, I believe, tonight, right after we record. So we'll be able to get maybe a little bit more information for you guys. And
it's Sunday night, no?
It's the. Oh yeah, you're right. It's Saturday.
It's tomorrow night.
Idiot. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, so what out of all the players right now from the brief footage that we've had, if any, that you guys are kind of like really excited for?
Easy. Okay. Well, easy answer for me is Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And I'm just saying that because I really liked one of the goals that he scored where, I don't know if you guys watched the highlights, but it's basically a play where he was in front of the net and he kind of had to battle in front of the net to get to the puck and like shove it in basically. And I think that's going to be really key this season, that he gets to those dirty areas, shows that he has a big body and with confidence and strong on his skates, and is able to kind of pot those dirty goals or dirty garbage goals, I should say. Because we've seen him get, with his skill and his shot, that he can get those opportunities where he can rip it from the slot and from further out. But you're not going to score the majority of your goals like that. You need to get to those dirty areas and be able to go get those goals. So I think that's a part of his game that we haven't necessarily seen a lot of, and I would like to see it more. And I thought I saw it in that scrimmage game.
Bro, did you see the deke that he did on
Oh
Byron?
my god. It was that shell deke. It was an auto deke.
Fucking LB, like stroll back with the right stick.
Last
easy
man
money.
back, no problem.
Chow
Who cares?
chow by it. But even Paul Byron was like, buddy, that was sick. You know?
Paul Byron was like, what the fuck?
It's like, oh, fuck. That's why I'm on the fourth line.
I mean, good thing that Paul Byron's fast, because you could just skate back and it's...
Yeah, his
You're
recovery on that was actually pretty impressive. But I'm joking, obviously. But I love Paul Byron. Alex, for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kotkaniemi as well. To me, he's the biggest question mark going into the lineup, or going into this year. If he can build on that playoff performance, if he can keep it going, and from the clips, it looks like he is ready. It looks like he will perform. What I liked about a lot of the clips I saw, it seems they're using him for his one-timer on one of the power play lines, which I think I remember it was his rookie year. I think he scored a couple of goals, one-timer on the power play, and he has a good shot. He just hasn't really gotten to showcase it much.
Well,
so I think if that happens this season, that's something to look out for, and people might see him as more of a goal scorer than a playmaker.
Yeah, and I mean, again, coming back to Jake Allen's quotes, the fact that he has an absolute missile, it's been the quote, we tweeted it, everybody's tweeted it, but, I listened to Jesperi Kotkaniemi's interview, and ever since the bubble, I feel like there's been kind of a shift in his mindset. I know he was kind of like very happy-go-lucky and stuff like that, but I think that last year was a little bit of like, I think when he came in... Yeah, like a wake-up call. It's like he thought he was going to kill it, I think, maybe. I'm obviously assuming this, but, and then after that, you have like all of these things that happen to him, and he gets sent down to the AHL, and then when he got his opportunity to come back and be the key performer that he was in the playoffs, I saw him from that stint, kind of that shift from like, okay, I'm a cute kind of smiley kid until like, I eat salmon at my mom's house only, like during the summer, but now I'm here for business, So I'm very excited for Kotkaniemi. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to mention a couple of other names on my side very quickly. Obviously, I spoke about Anderson. I think that out of all of the acquisitions, I know Tyler Toffoli is part of it, but I'm much more excited to see what Anderson is going to do. I just think that if this guy pans out, we potentially may have a steal. Of a player. It could be that he's a complete bust with the contract of 7 years, but we could have something solid, like really solid for the years to come. Yeah. The other player alongside with that is Jonathan Drouin, who's going to be playing with him, and Nick Suzuki. Well, obviously Nick Suzuki, I think he's going to be great too, but just the guys that I would want to see from more an established standpoint, Jonathan Drouin with Joel Armia and Nick Suzuki last season, and Drouin, you got the fucking Justin with the rocking of the Jonathan Drouin jersey. I've got my Kotka jersey on right now, so
it was all planned. It was all staged.
Yeah, you like my jersey?
Yeah. Alex is wearing his Maple Leafs shirt right under his hoodie.
Sudbury Wolves.
But yeah, so coming back to Jonathan Drouin is that we saw glimpses. We've always seen glimpses with Jonathan Drouin. That's been the problem. And I think that if he can turn it on because of this line chemistry, I know that it's been kind of said that when he plays, and in junior, I can't remember who he was playing with that was a power forward. Does anybody know?
It was Nathan McKinnon, wasn't it?
Yeah, he played with McKinnon.
Yeah. but wasn't there like a winger that was helping him too? That was
Martin
bigger.
Ferk?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I remember from Twitter, my Twitter research is not that great, but I remember that a lot of people are saying that him with a power forward and a good center is the recipe for success for Jonathan Drouin. He scored a nasty goal on a like semi breakaway that he finished that looked like dirty. And this is the player that if there is a time to kind of separate yourself from the Dano line, it's going to be that guy. It's going to be that guy with Nick Suzuki and because you need three pieces to be going for you to be a solid line, of course. Can't just be Nick Suzuki, can't just be Josh Anderson. But if these three players get it to fucking together, it could be devastating. It could be devastating. And lastly, a guy that I think people have written off because, of his contract, because of his injuries, but I think that Paul Byron could surprise. And be super effective in his role as a guy that's going to kill other teams like third or fourth lines. I think that he's going to be a key piece to being a deep fucking team. So those are my guys, and I know that I said quite a bit, and we could probably go on and on about all of the people that we think could be outstanding. But yeah, those are my picks. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Yeah, Paul Byron too. I mean, if there's one guy you want on a penalty kill in the whole league, it's Paul Byron.
Yeah. Speedy Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with the Paul Byron pick. I think I don't think he's not. I mean, at the beginning of the season, last season, he wasn't totally on his game. But other than that little blip, I don't feel like he's ever really been had a lot of bad games. Like I think he's always just a consistent player, and when he can put up goals and score on breakaways, it's just like it's amazing. Because if we have that kind of player on a deep roster and on a fourth line playing against your fucking Maple Leafs, like who the fuck is it, third, fourth line, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be good.
If there are any Leafs fans, they're probably not gonna like that tournure de phrase, but hey.
Well, they won't understand what you just said, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys. Let's. I mean, that's quite a bit of Habs talk for a Habs podcast. I mean, we'll get back into them. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation, which I think everybody is now aware of. For those of you who are listening that don't know but are listening to a niche Habs podcast, I'd very much doubt that you didn't hear this. But Pierre-Luc Dubois, his agent, and I think the conversation around the league is that he no longer wants to stay in Columbus.
Who can blame
signed
him?
A contract. Sorry?
Who can blame him?
He signed a contract for 2 years, and this is kind of like it's known that he wants to be part of a quote unquote a bigger stage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you heard of the hockey mecca? I don't know where that is. I think it's Montreal. That's a pretty massive stage.
It's Toronto, no?
Not a chance in hell, buddy.
And sorry, where is he from? Pierre-Luc Dubois?
That's a good question. Can
I think
we get
he's
a quick Google search.
He's from Saint Agathe.
He is.
Yeah.
Desmonts.
Yeah, Saint Agathe Desmonts.
You know,
there you go.
Jonathan
Province du Québec,
also from.
Asti.
Okay, that's no joke. Well, okay, let me get your thoughts on Pierre-Luc Dubois expressing the fact that he wants to leave Columbus.
Can we get his?
If you think this makes sense?
Yeah, sorry. Do you know what his contract was? It's 2 years at how much money?
It's the same. It's close to what Max Domi made. I think a bit more. It's like 5.5. 2 years, 5.5. I should have. Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, it's 5. It's 2 years at 5. Yeah.
Okay, so it's I think that's exactly what Max Domi signed for. No,
I think it was. Wasn't his more? I don't know. We're definitely not prepared for this, but
yeah. So what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
What's in
the water at Columbus?
For me, it's very exciting. If I'm a Columbus fan, I'm depressed at this point. Every single big player just leaves Columbus not long after they get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, unfortunately, well, no, not unfortunately. When when other people are miserable, usually someone else reaps the rewards, and I'm going to reap the rewards. So, yeah, I'm super hyped. He's coming to Montreal.
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
He's calling it.
Look, we're the first to announce it here.
No respect. Breaking news. Pierre-Luc Dubois officially signs in 2 years to the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, Justin, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on what Alex said, but I was just going to say that, like, it just makes sense. Like, I mean, if you want stage, you want to come home, buddy, come home.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see him play here, obviously. And I think his contract is I guess well earned, but I do think he's a bit like, there's always these players that come up that are like end up being free agents, and people overhype the shit out of them. And I think as much as I think he's shown that he's a good player, and he showed in the playoffs. He showed in the playoffs that he came up in big moments and he was clutch, and he had a hat trick in one of the playoff games, I think, and he pretty much dominated one of the series. But for me, he's a bit overhyped, but I think he would fit super well in Montreal for sure. But I also think that we don't need him necessarily. Like, we don't not because he's from Quebec. Like, I think players from Quebec are definitely welcome here. But I just think that he doesn't necessarily, like, if we have Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who are just totally playing great hockey for us, I don't think we necessarily need another center. Like, and I don't think he's that much of an upgrade, or if he'd be a better fit for us than Phil Danault. And that's what I would say. Like, I would want to keep Phil Danault instead of signing him. I wouldn't want to lose Phil Danault to get him necessarily. And that's all kind of
I don't know.
That's all. Okay, this might be a shit take for sure, but
it is 100%.
If we didn't have Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi being like the 60-point players that we think they can be, 60 plus, then I'd be like, yes, we should go out and get him. But I think people underrate Phil Danault and what he brings to a team, and the fact that he's like our number one, and the fact that he can just shut down other teams' top lines, and he brings so much to our top line and plays so many minutes that I don't want to lose him. That's my only point. I don't mind getting Pierre-Luc Dubois, but I don't want to lose Phil Danault to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. Maybe a shit take. I'm sorry, but
Alex, go ahead. I got some shit to say.
And we definitely can't have two Quebecois centers, right?
I agree that you don't want to lose Phil Danault, but Dubois is what we hope Kotkaniemi will become. Like, I don't see Kotkaniemi becoming a better player than him. Yeah, obviously I don't want to move Danault, but if you can move Kotkaniemi plus for a guy like Dubois, you do it any day. I don't really see him as being overhyped. I think he might be underrated, to be honest. He's still, 22? He's playing in Columbus, so his line mates are, I think, Texier, and Texier is not bad, but he's not playing with high-end talent. And a guy who can dominate a playoff series, that doesn't come around often as available. And he's basically saying to Bergevin, like, come get me, right? A guy from Quebec saying, I want to play on a bigger stage, is like his way around the loopholes of you can't tamper with players, right? But I think he's basically just saying it straight up that he wants to be here.
But fuck, you're playing in fucking Columbus though. Like, you say bigger stage, like that's 28 other teams.
Columbus,
I know what it sounds like for him, like being from Quebec and saying he wants to play on a bigger stage.
The storyline that you would get, that a number 1 C in Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yes, there might be a couple of question marks. Like, I know some people are saying that this might be a question of his integrity or whatever, in terms of, giving up on his situation and stuff like that, or whatever it is. But the storyline for Montreal and Quebec as a whole. With, you know, when we acquired Jonathan Drouin, it was like an amazing kind of storyline to bring a guy. Yes, we gave up Sergachev, and a lot of people are going to be like still pissed about that. I think the jury is still up for grabs. I think it is. I know that it looks more to the favor of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but they're also fucking stacked. I still stay with that take on my side. But to bring home Pierre-Luc Dubois to Montreal for a guy that wants to play on the biggest stage, and I'm sorry, Toronto, yes, the biggest stage. Like, I agree with you, Alex. Where I would say differently is that I think that Kotkaniemi has the potential to get to that level. I think that it's in him. It's not a guarantee. And
I could see him at that level. I could see him at that level. I don't see him better, though.
I could potentially disagree with you there. I think that it all depends on his development. But Jesperi Kotkaniemi is 20 years old. Pierre-Luc Dubois is 22. So if you give Kotkaniemi 2 years, I can see it potentially happening. But I say this. There's the emotional side of me, and then there's the emotionless side of me, which is like Bergevin at the gym about to fucking make a trade call. And that side of me says that I wear this Kotkaniemi jersey and love this fucking player, is that after this year, if for whatever reason there's something that's not taking to the next level, I would bite the bullet. Yeah, I wouldn't even potentially do it. I would bite the bullet and say, it depends on the price, though. If it's Kotkaniemi and Nick Suzuki, you can go fuck yourself. But if it's Kotkaniemi and a draft pick and maybe, you know, whatever it is, like that extra package, as long as that package doesn't involve, you know, elite pieces, I would probably say yes. And Jarmo Kekalainen, a Finnish guy, if he sees Jesperi Kotkaniemi available, he passed on Jesse Puljujarvi that draft to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. And, you know, a lot of people scratch their heads, but that was a great move. But he could bring, you know, there's that connection potentially. I don't know if that has any impact. I don't think so for somebody who picked Pierre-Luc Dubois over Jesse Puljujarvi that draft year. But that is the reality that you can potentially play with as a Montreal Canadiens fan and thinking of the what ifs. I want Jesperi Kotkaniemi to be this guy, but there is a storyline here. And where I disagree with you, Justin, is that I would trade 1,000% Phil Danault for Pierre-Luc Dubois, because Nick Suzuki could potentially be that responsible / better offensive player for this roster. And he's an RFA as opposed to a UFA.
The keyword you're saying is potentially.
Yes. And that's true.
Another thing that we haven't talked about is the fact that the Montreal Canadiens aren't the so much cap space team that they were before. They're kind of strapped a bit for cash at the moment with their cap. So, having said that, I mean, when we're thinking of re-signing these players, like Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Nick Suzuki are incredibly cheap right now for their potential output. Whereas Pierre-Luc Dubois, if we're talking about right now, he's worth $5 million. In 2 years, he's going to be worth what, 8 or 9?
Potentially. Well,
more?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, with a flat cap, might skew the numbers for sure.
But I mean,
it
depends if you're talking about a short-term thing or a long-term thing about moving Danault or a more expensive player that we have. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
I just think that the storyline for Marc Bergevin, you know, for Quebec, I think it's great. I've had this take. You know, I know a lot of people disagree with the fact that, you know, you don't need francophone players in the Montreal market, but from a business side, from looking at the consumer perspective and what your audience is, it brings something added to this team. It shouldn't be the priority. I think we're all in agreement when it comes to that agreement. But the storyline would be beautiful for the
touching on the storyline too. Sorry if I'm stepping over you there, but the storyline, that draft where Kekalainen skipped over Puljujarvi for Dubois, that was the draft that we had that trade deal in place with Edmonton where we would have picked Dubois, but Columbus ended up picking him.
I forgot about that entirely. Oh yeah, was that the year for Subban?
Yeah, exactly. So we would have gotten
Fuck.
Edmonton's 4th pick. I think it was the 4th overall, thinking that
Jeez.
Dubois was going to end up 4th. But when Edmonton picked Puljujarvi, or I forget how it played out, but because Columbus skipped on Puljujarvi, the deal fell through.
Really, I didn't know that was the reason. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it was so
Jeez.
Montreal could get Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, like this is there is definitely, you gotta think about it if you're Marc Bergevin. I know that he's had a great offseason. He spoke a little bit about how in the press conference, it's going to be difficult that they're done now, but when this news arises and you're Marc Bergevin, you're definitely looking at the potential of doing this. I don't think there's 1 ounce of Marc Bergevin's fucking biceps and everything else about him that's not gonna at least take a look at Pierre-Luc Dubois and the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I think he's definitely
Agreed.
keeping his ear to the phones there for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it's going to happen this season, at least until the trade deadline potentially. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe next year or something.
Yeah.
I think it's all going to depend on Danault and what we decide to do with him, because I don't think we're going to make any decision until we have decided whether or not to keep him, whether or not whatever we're going to give him as a contract. And obviously we're going to have to replace him. So that's something that could come sooner than later, because his contract's up at the end of this year. But we'll see, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of talks between, or a lot of optimistic talks between Danault and the Canadiens right now in terms of coming to a contract agreement.
Yeah, and I don't, to come back on the Phil Danault thing, like I think that it makes sense for both sides, because and add this to Pierre-Luc Dubois' situation coming to Montreal. It's all not even gonna depend on the performance of the team. It's literally gonna depend on the performance of your top 3 centers in Montreal. If there's progression from Nick Suzuki, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and for whatever reason Philippe Danault is not part of that puzzle anymore, that could be the piece. If it's the opposite, where it's Nick Suzuki, it could be the piece. If it's the opposite for Jesperi Kotkaniemi, that could be the piece that brings him here. The hot take that I would say is that, like you, Alex, I think it's gonna happen. I think it's really gonna happen. I don't know when, but
I think we should tweet it out. I think we should confirm it.
We're gonna get roasted. Well, we can eat crow. We've done.
Yeah, we're
gonna
get roasted by our 4 followers.
Hey, I'm very happy with all of our followers. Okay, no problem.
Me too.
And thank you for listening. We'll continue on. And another player that's asked for a trade, but that is now at camp, is Patrick Laine. Obviously, for the Montreal Canadiens, I don't think this is something that we're going to be looking into. The ask is extremely high when it comes to this guy, for sure. And I don't know if I might be biased when I say that, there's a difference in the attitude in Pierre-Luc Dubois and Laine, but there's something a little bit egotistical about Patrick Laine that I get a sense of. And I don't know the guy personally whatsoever, but from outside looking in and all of the interviews and the way that he kind of addresses the media, I think that he wants to call the shots. I don't know what you guys think about Laine.
Yeah, for me, I mean, as a person, I don't really care if you're a cocky guy or if you're super confident or whatever. It's what you bring me. And I think with Patrick Laine, you pretty much get goals assured and probably some assists, some points, but not too much else. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, Ovechkin spent half his career doing that, and it worked out well for him. So, I mean, I think he's gonna get his wish, and he's gonna get signed or even traded potentially to a different team. But yeah, it's gonna have to be a team that has enough cap space, because he's gonna make probably around 10 mil easy per year. He's not getting another bridge contract, that's for sure. So it's gonna have to be someone who has the cap space and has the money to sign them long term as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree that it's probably not going to be the Habs, and I don't really want it to be the Habs necessarily. He's just not the type of player that I kind of gravitate towards. But who am I to say?
Yeah, I think he's not the type of player that Bergevin or Claude Julien would want either.
Yeah,
I think it just comes down to that. They don't want players who, like you were saying, like his personality kind of shows that he's more about his individual success rather than the team's success. And I think that's the complete opposite direction that Julien and Bergevin are going with this team.
Yeah.
And I think I can just leave it at that. I don't think he's a realistic acquisition for Montreal, and I don't think they'd even look at him.
Yeah, well, especially with Pierre-Luc Dubois on the table, for sure.
Well, with him signed and already in a Habs jersey.
We've already confirmed it. Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, the other guy that was holding off a little bit, and we'll get into is Matthew Barzal with the New York Islanders. They just signed a $3 by $7 million contract today, which is huge, and I well deserved. This guy is. There's a piece that they needed to keep. They lost Tavares, they lost a couple of guys over the years, and like the main thing here is that Barzal is like, I think, that team's future. They didn't lock him in for that long, but this guy is a game changer. And I don't know what you guys think about the New York Islanders. They've showed and they've proved under Barry Trotz that this team is an effective team. They might be boring. They might play the trap. They might play a defensive game. They might just, play literally chess when you want to see, fireworks. But it works. And Barzal is that one guy on that team from a Montreal Canadiens bias perspective that I could say is the most exciting player on that squad.
Yeah, Barzal, I think he's one of the guys like you watch hockey for. When I turn on the TV at the end of the day, I want to be entertained. Obviously, I want Montreal to win, but I don't want to sit there just falling asleep for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And when you watch a guy like Matt Barzal, it's fun to watch. It's exciting. He has highlight reel plays almost every night. Good for the Islanders to sign him. I don't think I'd be concerned about him moving after this deal. I think that's just how it goes now with these young guys. They get more money up front and end up re-signing for a long-term deal after. I think they realize that they have the value now to get paid even when they're 22. I don't know how old he is.
Yeah.
But he's fun to watch, and I'd be excited if I was an Islanders fan.
I think it's fair to say that Marner started that trend, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think obviously Barzal is an electrifying player, and he's, I don't know, he kind of reminds me of, they're both kind of similar, like Braden Point and Matt Barzal. Like, they're very confident with the puck, and they kind of just like take over all the ice when they have the puck, and it seems like they can do anything. I think it's a good signing, definitely from for the Islanders. And ever since they lost Tavares, like, he's been their rock, and he's been the guy that has like stepped up and become like their number one offensive player. So I think they're set with him, at least for the next 3 years. And in 3 years, he's going to make a lot of money, though. That's for sure. If he keeps this up, like, he's almost a point per game player right now. And if he continues, he's going to make upwards of, if the cap goes up, even like 11, 12 million, maybe potentially.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, like on the topic of Paul Marner and Mitch Marner trying to get as much money for these young guys. I think it makes sense. Like, when you have that much of an impact on the Montreal Canadiens, on the team that you play for, right away, it just makes sense that these guys are holding out. It's nothing personal. I don't think that now that it's become like a league trend. And again, stemmed from Marner, from Nylander, all of those guys, and good old Toronto, which we're still you're still our friends. I love Toronto, I love the city. But my point is that it really makes sense that these guys do hold out, because so what, you're 21 and you're 20 and you have like if you scored 90 points like Mitch Marner did, you deserve to get fucking paid. You deserve to get paid. If you're Matt Barzal and John Tavares is gone and you're that guy, you deserve to get paid like that guy. Like that's just the reality. So I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts, but we could potentially move on unless you guys do.
I mean, the only problem I have with it is the fact that, like, in the Marner situation, he was obviously asking for that contract in knowing that in the whatever 3 or 4 years in the future, the cap is going to go up and he's going to be able to get a much bigger contract. So I think that's a bit like meh, like a bit slimy to me, but it is what it is. It's business. You want to maximize your profits and stuff, but
I don't think it's slimy because the team does the exact same thing in the opposite direction. Yeah, they're trying to tie them up long term for less money so that when the cap goes up, they can get other guys, right? Like I think it's changing in not just the NHL, like any workplace. I think people are starting to realize that your boss, your company, they're looking at the money aspect of it too. Like it's not greedy to get what you're worth.
I mean, the only thing that I'll say on that is that you look at Crosby and what he did for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and in theory, Connor McDavid did it too, but with the flat cap, not so much. Is that the difference between a player asking for more money is that it directly impacts what the team can get, whereas the team
and what the other players will earn.
Exactly. And so what if it's just a question of saving money from the owner perspective and the team perspective, but if it's a team that's spending to the cap and just wants to win, it does send a little bit more of a slimier message if you're going just for that. So that's the only difference for me.
Fair enough.
You know.
But yeah,
anyways,
we can move
guys,
on. We talked shit enough about Mitch Marner last season. We don't need to bring it up again.
hey, Mitch Marner can make us pay even though he's making 10.5, and so is Austin Matthews. So we'll see that on opening night, and obviously we're going to see some fucking shitty tweets saying that everybody's a bust on the Montreal Canadiens if the one game doesn't go our way. So I think we won every single game against the Toronto Maple Leafs last season. Is that correct?
I have to check.
Okay, it's fine. It was just trying to zing them.
We'll just say it's correct. We can tweet that
too. Just inaccurate information coming from the No Respect podcast. Pierre-Luc Dubois fucking signed to the Montreal Canadiens, and we sweep the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay, so on a more serious note, there's been a couple of teams that have been hit from COVID, and this is maybe a little bit of a worrisome thing for the league overall. Of course, for the individuals, we're hoping for the best, but the teams in question are Columbus, Dallas, and Pittsburgh. I think they all released some kind of statement regarding this situation. To be honest, I this is probably going to be part of a reality moving forward. For the league, and this is just the situation when you're moving around and not everybody is from the city or staying in the city all the time where they play. So I really hope that this isn't going to be something and that this is going to be something that the league can recover from. I don't know if you guys have any details other than what I just said on this situation.
Not really, but I like a question I would ask, and you guys probably don't have the answer for it, but is if these teams, like, if there's outbreaks in one division out of the NHL, like does the NHL kind of stop everything? Do they stop things in one division? Do they shut like a single team down or two teams down? Like what happens?
I think it depends how far it goes. Like I know it's confirmed that Dallas's first 3 games are postponed.
Mm.
So they're only starting on January 19th now. So I guess that's like a workaround now, but if it gets out of hand, I think the only option is to stop everything, right? Like you can't have one team have 30 games played and another 5.
Yeah.
But hopefully it doesn't get out of hand, but unfortunately, with how it's looking just in the real world news, it might. I know people are probably fed up of hearing about COVID, but unfortunately, it's going to keep happening for now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that like if you look at and we'll get into the World Juniors, of course, but that happened to Germany, where their roster was depleted because of COVID cases, and they were playing with 3 lines. So a team that was already kind of like
Underdog.
Underdogs in that tournament. And then after that, you're like, oh, by the way, like half of your roster has COVID, so Canada's up next. Good luck. Like I don't know if that's gonna be something that they're gonna be okay with in the NHL, especially that it's the NHL and it's like. I think there's a lot more money that goes into the NHL and the success of teams and all of that stuff. Like Germany, I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised that if the COVID cases happened to Canada, that we would have been hearing a little bit more of a problem within the league and may have been adjusted. I could be wrong in what I'm saying, but I just think that the fact that it was Germany and their players that were affected has nothing to do with like the fact that they're German. Has to do with the fact that they don't maybe bring as much revenue to the game. But now every team in the NHL is a key part to bringing revenue. So I would severely doubt, and I agree with you, Alex, that I think that if this gets out of hand, there's no chance that they're going to just be like, okay, well, we're going to like prorate your fucking season wins, like and season win ratio. Like there's no chance.
I mean, yeah, and if you start postponing games, like 3 games is fine. Like you can find time for 3 games, but if it turns into 10, 15 games, and that's like a month of playing time, like it's not easy to extend the season by a month or to find time for those games. And how do you like, do you penalize the teams that have outbreaks? Like you can't really penalize them, and it's like it's a whole fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
But hopefully this is like the only outbreak we see, and it's smooth sailing for the rest of the season. Yeah. I don't expect it will be, but yeah. Hoping for the best for them. At least I hope there's no bad cases there and everyone recovers well.
Yeah. I mean, let's we'll move on just because we've got still a couple of things left. And we said that we were going to do a shorter episode. We're already like at 1 hour and 20. What? How many minutes?
1 hour and 20. About.
Oh, good job, guys, for all of you listening. We're gonna get to the World Juniors right now, and of course we talked a little bit about it. But for Canada, the big kind of team that was supposed to win it all, take it all, loses to the United States. Your thoughts on what happened, and when it comes to the World Juniors, I do not like to be very critical because they're so young. Like these are kids, and they're doing much more than we are when it comes to their professional success and the stage that they're playing on. Obviously, there's certain things that we can talk about. I don't know what you guys think about why this happened, and for a team that almost, I think a lot of people were saying that this is almost a lock with the amount of first rounders and stuff that were on this team.
Yeah, it was 100% first rounders on Team Canada's roster. So, or at least on the forward roster. I don't know about the whole team. But yeah, to me, their loss to the U.S. came because of their lack of like being tested in the tournament, and their lack of having any. They didn't have any resilience as a team because they never faced any adversity. They just spanked every team they saw, and then when they saw the team that actually put them to the test, they didn't have anything in the tank to kind of combat that, and they just got like, they got on their heels and they were just nervous the rest of the game. And I think the first goal and the first and second goal against the Canadiens in that game just took them by surprise, and they just couldn't recover at all. And they did come back in the third period, in the, I guess, second half of the second period and third period, and they played pretty well, but Spencer Knight shut the door, and that was it. But hats off to the US. They played a really good tournament, and they played a hard tournament because they played hard games against Finland, they lost against Russia their first game, and then they won 6 games in a row to win the tournament. So, I mean, it was a great tournament by them, and they have some pretty exciting players on their lineup.
Yeah, I think obviously the loss was a surprise, but in a 1-game single elimination tournament, like, it's gonna happen. We've seen bigger upsets over 7-game playoff series, like Tampa got swept by Columbus, stuff like that. And it's not like the US is like, no offense to Germany, but it's not like the US is Germany. They have multiple first round picks. They have game changing players. Spencer Knight, who got a shutout. Like, I think in a one game like that, yeah, Canada will win maybe 7, 8, 9 times out of 10, but it's one game. It happens literally all the time. So yeah, Canada were favorites, but I wasn't too surprised. Like, the US is going to show up for a game against Canada.
Yeah, I totally agree with exactly what you guys said. I mean, it's coming back to the Tampa Bay Lightning that didn't get tested throughout the whole fucking regular season that year, where they got like what, they were like 65 and whatever, and like they had like 7 losses in regulation, whatever it was ridiculous, and they got to the playoffs, and you have this team that like will not quit and has something to prove, and you've just been coasting all year, and now you come into this tournament and you have like all of this. You're 16-2 against fucking Germany. You barrel through Russia in a semifinal game, start to finish, and then you get to the final, and then you have a team that's knows what they have to do, and that's where I give credit to the US, is that they played aggressive from the get-go. And guys that we have to mention is and above all is Trevor Zegras. This guy for Anaheim is gonna be disgusting if he keeps on his development curve, but the playmaking, the intensity, the skill. I was looking at his warm-ups, and I was like, this is just nasty. And he just brought it every single game. The whole squad, though, on that side, there was Turcotte as well that played a hell of a game. Just overall, they were ready to go. And when you got Canada on your heels, that hasn't felt that throughout the tournament. The only adversity they had was, of course, Kirby Dach not being part of that group and breaking his wrist. But apart from that, they still managed super well.
Yeah.
So. That's that. I think they caught them by surprise, and like you said, Alex, this can happen from time to time, and I actually like it. I as much as I'm a Canadian that's very proud, and I think that this is, of course, our sport first and foremost in the Great White North. This for us, this is good for the game as a whole, because if you come to the tournament and it's just Canada that's fucking every year gold, like it loses relevance. And it'd be great. It's great to have like these types of storylines that can happen, whether it be Russia, United States, and you hope that these other teams will, get the chance to I'm not naming Finland and Sweden. Of course, these guys are powerhouses as well, but Germany's up on the rise, and the Czechs as well, and stuff like that. So this is great for the tournament as a whole, I think, regardless.
Yeah, for sure. It was cool to see Germany do well and make it to the elimination rounds, which I think was something they hadn't done in like 20 years or 30 years or something. Mm-hmm. So that was good, and it's always cool to see their like kind of little, like the Tim Stutzels, like the little, and like Anze Kopitar, like these superstars that are kind of coming from the countries that don't always produce these big name players, or produce the powerhouse teams like Canada and Russia and stuff. So that's always fun to watch. And yeah, I think I don't know if you guys want to talk about Caden Gooley at all, but I thought he had a very good tournament. I thought he, like at the beginning of the tournament, I thought he was like when people were talking about Canada's team, he was kind of seen as one of the lower end defensemen, but I kind of think he, playing through games, he kind of got better and better, and he kind of cemented his role as like he was kind of in the second pairing, and they used him in a lot of good situations, and he always made good defensive plays, had his big body to throw around, he smashed some players. And yeah, so I think he played a great game, a great tournament. The last game was a bit shaky for him, but we don't have to talk about that.
I mean, it was a bit shaky for everyone. The only other two guys that I wanted to mention, obviously Cole Caulfield, who had a hell of a tournament. I know a lot of people were like, this guy didn't dominate, so he's going to be a bust, blah, blah, blah. Like he had some moments where, again, Cole Caulfield, what you can expect from him is like offense. And he has the shot. He showcased his shot in multiple occasions. And Of course, there's going to be question marks when you're that undersized, but I just think that this guy's has the potential to put it together and be an effective NHL player. That remains to be seen. Another guy that we didn't mention that was part of this tournament is Jan Mysak. I think that's how it's pronounced, or Mysak. I don't know how you want to say it.
Jan Mysak.
It's Mysak, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's Jan Mysak, I think.
Yeah, there you go. So he scored a couple of goals as well. And yeah, I think, to maybe end off on the World Juniors topic, it's a great platform to see the young players of that are potentially going to shape, the NHL roster for years to come. Guys like Bout and Byram, that's on the Avalanche, of course, fucking solid. Jamie Drysdale, another Anaheim pick who fucking, again, a lot of studs that you can kind of showcase. Connor McMichael, later round pick for the Washington Capitals. So it was a great tournament. I always enjoy watching the World Juniors, and unfortunate that Canada didn't win it for us as Canadians, but that's it. Let's move on, guys. Let's get to the last half of the last half. It's not going to be the half, but the last portions of today's show. We have what's left is a hot take roundtable. We've got a would you rather with Justin, and then we'll quickly talk about the Toronto-Montreal lineup. For those of you who are listening to this all in one shot, congratulations, you've made it through to the hot take roundtable. So one hot take per person on this panel for this season for the Montreal Canadiens heading into this season.
I can start.
Go.
I can start.
Yeah.
And this one's spicy. And this one brings back memories. I think Carey Price wins the Vezina.
Wow.
Ooh, wow. Wasn't expecting that one. I like that. And any reason why?
I think with his new helmet, great artwork on his new helmet, showing his robotic kind of positioning and always knowing and having his brains show up on his helmet. That'll just make the difference. No, but I think I think he's just due. I think he showed that in the playoffs that he's still the Carey Price we know and love, and he's showed that throughout his career in moments and kind of in different spurts. And I think this year with the kind of defensive core that we have, it'll allow him to really play better and not be hung out to dry like we've seen time and time again over the last couple of years with our kind of shitty. Sorry, I won't say shitty. With our lackluster defense sometimes.
Yeah. Consistency.
I think that's my hot take.
I like it.
I'm sticking by it.
All right, my hot take is that by February 1st, Pierre-Luc Dubois is a Montreal Canadien.
Don't you mean January 9th?
Hot take. We've already confirmed it, Alex.
Okay, true. I'll go for something more roster related. This is going to be a disappointing one, so I apologize.
No problem.
Oh, no.
Josh Anderson will score less than 10 goals.
Oh.
No, it is a shortened season, so that probably translates to like 17 or something in a full season.
Yeah.
But I don't think he will score 10 goals.
You want to know what my hot take is?
Yeah.
It's going to be the opposite.
Josh Anderson will be the biggest surprise of the Montreal Canadiens this season.
Okay, but quantify it. You have to quantify it. How many, like, what's this point production then? If he's the biggest surprise, I think
I can't quantify it, but because for me, he's going to be the way that I want to quantify it is that Josh Anderson will be a game changer for the Montreal Canadiens. That's my hot take. Like, he's going to be that important to this team on the forward group. At least that's what I'm hoping. And I don't know. There's something about this fucking moving fridge that's going like a gazelle that just got me hyped. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I really hope it does. And I think that it has the potential. That's my hot take. Josh Anderson, game breaker of the Montreal Canadiens this season. All around.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How many points do you think he's going to score?
I
want you to quantify it. Yeah.
In 56 games, I think.
Or how many goals? Let's go goals and points.
Goals and points?
Yeah.
He's going to score 25.
Okay. That's
In 56
goals.
games?
That's 0.5.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay.
Okay, like 20 to 25. Give me 20 to 25. Okay. And he's going to get less assists. So like I would say around the same range. Like he's going to be split 20, 25 on both ends of the spectrum, but it's going to be mainly his impact on the game that is going to be the main thing for me. You're going to be like, fuck, the Montreal Canadiens are insane because of this guy. That's the way I see it.
Okay. Good take.
So do you think I have him on my fantasy roster? Do you think I should keep him as one of my keepers?
Legit, if you drop him, and I might sign him for a 3-year contract on my fantasy team.
Okay.
Like, not gonna lie. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, that was the hot take. So I think we could do so many hot takes, but we'll keep going. We have a Would You Rather segment with Justin. And for those of you who are listening to this audio-wise, we thank you. But we also have a little bit of Justin's magic in terms of this beautiful presentation that we have on YouTube if you're watching. So, Justin, I'll let you lead this segment.
Okay, so this segment's called Would You Rather? And basically we're going to pit two similar players together of the same position, and they're kind of like similar amount of points, similar age and stuff, so it's not too different, and so it's not too easy, I guess. So without further ado, I'll reveal what the players are. Obviously, Mackie and Alex don't know who the players are beforehand. So if you guys want to pull up some stats when you see it.
Wait, can I take a guess before you pull them up?
Oh no. Yeah, you can.
It's gonna be Eichel and Matthews.
That was actually something I thought about, but no, it's not. Okay, that's maybe one for next time.
Okay, can I guess?
Sure.
My side, Josh Anderson and Tom Wilson.
No, that's also that's a good one too.
We're just feeding you fucking segments right now.
Got the next 2 weeks all set up. Anyway,
all right, let's go.
So this week, and it'll appear on screen, the last season stats of these players.
Okay,
so
let's do it.
Without further ado, Nikita Kucherov and Artemi Panarin. So whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
I can go.
First of all, actually, I want to ask you guys, because I was kind of surprised by this. Which of these players is older?
Kucherov,
I guess because you're surprised Panarin's older.
Yeah. Panarin's actually older than Nikita Kucherov.
Really?
Panarin's 28.
He joined the league a little bit later. Yeah.
So Panarin's 28 and Nikita Kucherov's 26.
Oh, fuck. Kucherov's young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Alex, go ahead.
I'm going to go like realistically, I should say Kucherov, but emotionally, I'm going to say Panarin just because I find him more fun to watch. I find his personality better, more exciting. So that's the only reason. If I was looking just like who I should fill my roster with, I'd pick Kucherov. But for the excitement value he brings, I'd pick Panarin.
I mean, the way that I see this is regular season for me. It's no brainer Nikita Kucherov. But what I really liked about Artemi Panarin, especially in Columbus, was how fucking much of a game breaker he was. But yeah, it's hard for me to say not Kucherov. He's just too fucking nasty. The thing that he did to Robin Lehner, that was too much.
And Braden Holtby, twice.
Yeah. No, you can't say no to that. I understand what you're saying, in terms of maybe his body language, and there's certain kind of baby moments that he has, where he's kicking players from the Capitals as he's going back to the bench.
He was cross-checking people players?
He kicked who was it? Was it Connolly? No, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Connolly on it was one of the mic'd up things, and Connolly, I could be mistaking who it was, but the player is did you really just kick me? Did you really just kick me? And
it's he's like the Suarez of the NHL.
Yeah,
did you really bite me?
To Brad Marchand with the licking of the faces. But yeah, Nikita Kucherov for me, man, he's just way too nasty. He's a guy that, may not have the same personality as Artemi Panarin, but in terms of skill, I think that that there's no question for me that I would take Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah, and another thing is he's also, firstly, he's younger, which honestly that surprised the shit out of me. But then I remember that Artemi Panarin came in as an overager playing in the KHL, and he was 24, I believe, when he came to the Blackhawks.
Yeah. Montreal was runner-up, just FYI.
Yeah. Still think it was a fucking brain dead move to trade him for Brandon Saad. That was like zero IQ. Sorry, but another thing to note is that while Nikita Kucherov got 85 points this year, last year he got 128 points, which is absolutely bonkers. And like, it's no one's gotten close to that in the last 5 years. So it's if it were me picking, I would go for a Kucherov as well. But part of it is he does play on a better team. Like, I mean, Kucherov is, I guess, like Panarin kind of carries his line more than Kucherov does. So yeah, but I would pick Kucherov just because he's shown that he could put up just insane numbers, and he's younger. So that's the final picks. Mackie, you got Kucherov, and Alex, you got Panarin.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
Great.
Thank
you
you
both win.
Thank
yeah,
you.
that
win
was
a gift
great.
card.
Thank you.
I love it.
You both win a gift card at Barbie Barn.
Oh,
Barbie Barn. Wow.
Yeah,
love it.
$10.
All right. Okay. Well, we're at the last segment of the show, and it's talking about, of course, this week's matchups. We start on Wednesday. That's we're recording here Saturday, the 9th of January, and we start our season on Wednesday, which is the 13th, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
yes.
correct.
And playing against the big bad Maple Leafs, or the big bad aging Maple Leafs, I should say. No, I'm kidding. So we'll the upcoming schedule is Toronto, and then after that we are playing Edmonton twice in a row. So we'll talk a little bit about the Toronto matchup against Montreal. Obviously, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube who are Leafs fans, this is a Montreal Canadiens podcast, so we apologize if we're biased, but we don't really care. You guys are biased as well. So what do you guys think about this matchup? What's going to happen? I want to get maybe just the final win or loss for the Montreal Canadiens, Alex, and then after that, Justin.
It's going to be a loss.
Oh,
Really?
no.
Interesting.
Here we go.
This guy.
I don't have a particular reason. I just thought I'm always very negative about the Canadian season, so it's going to be a loss.
Okay, Justin.
For me, it's going to be a win for sure, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind at all.
I like it.
Because I have blind optimism when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, and I think it's going to be a really intense, good, fast game. I think it's going to be full of everything. It's going to be kind of similar, I think, to 2 years ago, where we saw Montreal and Toronto play each other when Jesperi Kotkaniemi was playing his first NHL game, and it ended in in overtime.
Overtime, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's going to be as intense as that. And if both teams come out flying, ready to play, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great game no matter what. And I think the Habs are going to win it.
I have to be with you, Justin. Obviously, Alex is here to bring us back to earth, and he's probably going to be right. And obviously, when we talk about Toronto, they're you can't you know the Montreal Canadiens got better, they got their depth and all of that, but Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, like those three guys can change the game. And there is a potential for a loss here for sure. But I honestly think that it's going to be a blowout win for the Montreal Canadiens. Honestly, I think that they're just going to come out and fuck them up. I really think so.
You think a blowout win?
Yeah. Like, I
Okay.
think it's going to be 4-1, 5-1 type of thing. I think Carey Price
All right.
is going to be on the ball.
That's enough performance for sure.
Well, exactly. Josh Anderson's going to score 3 of his 26 goals. You know what I mean? Like, no. More seriously, I this is my prediction, my optimistic prediction, of course. it all remains to be seen. But more seriously, the matchup of this team, we've had this debate on the podcast, and we're going to get a first taste of star power versus depth. And that's the storyline that I see against the Toronto Maple Leafs, is that, you know, the will the star power always win over just the depth of that's the only key piece that, you know, that we're missing, is that star power right now for the Montreal Canadiens. It could develop in certain players for sure, but we're not at that stage, and these guys have a multitude of those guys. So that's the storyline heading into this fucking thing, and we'll see what happens for the first thing. One thing's for sure is that even if it's a blowout loss on my side for this game, is that we're gonna lose against the Toronto Maple Leafs this year for sure. And I'm really excited. You know, we joke a lot about Toronto and the rivalry that we have, but I'm truly excited as a viewer to see two, I think, quality teams play against each other. Two different teams, but quality teams play against each other.
Just a final little thing about the Maple Leafs. I was looking at their lines, and apparently they have Joe Thornton playing with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. What do you guys think about that?
It's
because I'm kind of scared because Joe Thornton and Mitch Marner are both like elite passers, and Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner can shoot the puck. And
yeah, but can Thornton even make it to the offensive zone in time?
I was about to say that.
It's true. Gonna interfere with someone with his fucking beard.
I don't know. I don't think you want Joe Thornton playing 20 minutes a night. I don't see how he's gonna stick on that line, but we'll see.
It's true.
I mean, the playmaking is Joe Thornton. You know, the thing about Joe Thornton is that he's getting older. Like, we just saw a picture before of Joe Thornton. He looked like a guy that just like had a bender and like is just enjoying the game rather than being a player. Obviously, he's still killing it, and he's a legend in the hockey world. But that's just, you know, he's getting up there. So there's a reality there. And Alex, I totally agree. It could be that, you know, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner are literally going to be waiting for Joe Thornton to get into the blue zone when they have the puck. So it's probably not going to be that way, but it's going to be a curious thing. It could work. The playmaking of Joe Thornton is always going to be there. The IQ is always going to be there. And when you have a finisher like Matthews and Marner as well, you know, I put him in that category. It could be very dangerous. We'll see how it plays out.
I mean, they could look at him as kind of like a neutral zone pass, like to get into the zone and get like spring one of these players, and it could be something like that. And then
or the tip-in guy.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, that's a good point though. It would kind of concern me, him playing the most minutes on that line. Maybe they'll switch it up and put like another player on the line further down in the game or something.
Yeah,
or switch up the lines, because they've been known to switch around a lot of people on that left wing position.
See, like a guy that I would have put for the Toronto Maple Leafs is Wayne Simmons. If you're going to put an older guy, and we were talking about the lines that we have for the Montreal Canadiens, is like, you know, you got the shooter, you got the passer. That's Austin Matthews and Marner. And if there's a guy that's going to be in front of the net and stuff like that, like, I don't know to what extent Joe Thornton does that as much as Wayne Simmons. And I feel that would be the complementary piece that I would have put there. Remains to be seen. I could be completely wrong, and they fucking dominate us on Wednesday.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. But I'm fucking excited. I just can't wait for this to go on.
Yeah, it's Toronto on Wednesday, and then we've got Edmonton. We'll leave that up for us to watch, and for you guys back at home to watch, guys. Episode 2, we talking about practice is done. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts, Alex and Justin.
Not much. I'm excited to not talk about fucking practice and talk about real games.
That's true.
And yeah, I'm happy to be back with the boys and talking about hockey.
Correct.
Exciting. And follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, Alex, episode 2, how was it for you?
Oh, it was great, man. It's like I said, it's just an honor to be here. Always a pleasure with you guys, and I just want to close off my part of this with my, I guess we'll call it my famous statement now, with respect your elders.
I like it. I like
Perfect.
it. All right, guys. Just a quick reminder: we are now on YouTube. We are now on Spotify, and of course, we are on the Apple Podcast. So you can follow us at No Respect Podcast. It's NORESPEK podcast for our Twitter handles, and we have our individual ones. Mackie, which is Mackie MACKY _No Respect. Alex _No Respect. Justin _No Respect. So you can give us a follow. The support. I know that we had a little bit of a pause last year, but we're really looking forward with this new formula that we've got remotely to be as consistent as possible, and that's really our goal. And we've got so much passion, just like you guys back at home that are probably listening to it. So we're really excited. So if you guys want to hit us up, tell us some ideas for segments, we're always open. Hit us up with those DMs, and we'll see you guys next time. And always remind you to respect the organization. So have a good one, guys, and we'll see you next time.